trees, your yellow leaves move me. Dancing moves your painted red shakes the room. When I get there, I'll let my feet roll. When I get there, I'll break in your arms, I'll lose control. When I get there, I'll know the answer. Let me know when I get closer.
Hey everybody, happy Monday. This is Overpass Live. I'm Eric, I make apps. This is the weekly live stream where we just hang out and chat about whatever we want to talk about. So today I'm not wearing a t-shirt. You know what, I've really slacked off recently. We're just wearing t-shirts all the time. Right, so today I'm dressed up kind of, well, I wouldn't say nice. I'm middle of the road, you know, because I had a client meeting this morning. I haven't had it's been a while, like since it was like one of those things when you're meeting with a potential new client. It's like, do you put the full suit on or you kind of dress down in between? Sometimes jeans. A lot of times I'll go in jeans, but never in a t-shirt. Always trying to like dress up a little bit. So that's what I am a little bit today. So I'm like, trying to bring a little respectability to this channel. So anyway, it's been a busy week. A lot of stuff been working on. But just getting there. I know it's like I've been doing some stuff in Flutter, I'm doing stuff in Xamarin, just my own applications again. Oh no, actually, because we brought on a new developer. About a month ago, so we had another application of our own out, which I'm super excited about. Although I probably won't talk about it a whole lot here, at least not until I'm able to release it and everything like that. All the problems with copycats and stuff in the past, it's just like one of those things where I'm a little bit burned by it. So I'm going to wait to see how that goes live and see if I get to the marketing stage of that. It's one of those weird things when you're investing in your own application. You want to get something that's demonstrable. Yeah, anyway, I want to be able to show it to people. So that's one of the things we're working on. So anyway, just been like, again, head down, just getting stuff done, and that kind of stuff. And also learning about, some new things in Flutter. I was watching a few tutorials today. I want to get started on a new project there, and just, client meetings and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, thanks for joining for those guys who are here. Also, you may notice I'm sitting down today. I just thought I would be like, we're just going to chill today. We're going to chillax. We're going to relax. We're going to take it easy because, as MD says, first thing here is Happy Thanksgiving week. I know. It keeps up so soon. I did think this about doing something on Thursday. I'm going to go out and with a few people in the evening on Thursday, but it's not a Thanksgiving thing. It's like, I think a couple years ago I had a family, my sister came out, we had Thanksgiving dinner. But like the whole 23 years I've been here in England, I've only had Thanksgiving maybe 2 or 3 times. So it's like, and I always thought I would do it again and again. So I miss it. I miss Thanksgiving. I miss pumpkin pie. I miss the long nap afterwards. I miss decimating the toilet after a Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, it's the best. So anyway. So let's see. Erdem says, Eric, you were on TV. You were on the TV today. Oh, am I? I assume you're watching the stream on TV. Video production and contracting at the same time is hard. Here's our latest guide plan to the template. Curious what you think. Cool. I think it may have stripped out the link. So if you want to send it to me on Discord or on WhatsApp, Erdem, because you're on my WhatsApp, we could do that. So yeah, sometimes for those guys where you do try to send me links, we've always had trouble with this on YouTube where it strips the links out of the comments. If you're on the Discord server, you could send it through Discord and just let me know. That way I know to go there and look at it. Let's see, Cilantro Apps. Happy Monday from Rotterdam, Netherlands. Oh, cool. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. And Kevin Hawthorne's here. Hey, Kevin, how's it going? Eric, you're getting younger every day. Yeah, I wish that was the case. I'm putting on. Okay, so I don't know where to tell you this, but like I've been going to the gym a lot lately, and then I woke up this morning, my shoulder's just hurting. Like it's one of these things. I'm sure it's like from overdoing it at the gym, right? But I'm kind of like I'm just ignoring it. Like that's my man strategy. Like I think I'll just ignore it until it's really bad. And I'll get to the part where it's like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to take the week off of the gym. You know, because, you know, that's one of those things. I'll be 50 in July. And not that it's bothering me any. So let's see. Getting younger every day. Yeah, I wish that was the case. Adrian, hey, happy Monday, Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates. Let's see. Sorry, okay. I'm gonna mispronounce your name. Usak Gressior says, "What's the simplest app that you gain too much money? How much time does it take?" The time it takes it really depends on how much time you can dedicate to something, and if you need to do is find something that's unique, because anything you can think of that's simple to do, there's no like roadmap to, like you said, oh, you need to have a currency calculator or something like that. That's not really going to work, because you're going to be competing with loads of people who saw that low hanging fruit and are all going for that. So if you go to something that's a little bit more, let's see if I get this up here. If you go to something that's a little bit more, Erdem, I got your link. We'll go through that in a minute. Yeah, if you go to something like it's a low hanging fruit, loads of people are doing that. In fact, I was looking at Code Canyon earlier, just because there's a project that I'm thinking, there's got to be a template for this, right? That's one of the things I always look for. If it's something that's a really, like, not a very unique idea, then I'll look to see if I can find a template on Code Canyon or something, because that would save the client lots of money if we could just, go based on that. For the most part, unless it's badly coded, then it would like actually be, cheaper just to do it all from scratch. I'm afraid I don't really have an answer for you. For me, the one that made the most money was a very simple idea, but it's been like, so some idiot made a bunch of YouTube videos about how much money he made through this, and then like loads of people started doing it, and then he that kind of like went away. So and that would be me. Shaggy Dwarf, hello from Indy, Russia. Hey, how's it going? Okay, show the link on WhatsApp. Okay, let's have a look at this. So this is going to be what Erdem has said, video production and contracting at the same time is hard. So for those of you guys who are thinking about doing videos, and I think the reason I haven't been doing them as much is because it feels like I've talked about so much all the time, and it's kind of one of those things. Is anybody still getting value from it if I were to do it? So the live stream is fun because we get to hang. By the way, next week we're not going to be doing the live stream. Taking next Monday off. But it's like get together and chat and hang out and all this kind of stuff is fun. And I used to love doing the videos every day. But then it's one of these days I might do it again. I've been so busy. Well, like I said, we've established the whole Eric's been busy kind of thing. So video production and contracting is hard. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to share my screen here in a second. Okay. Let's have a look at... Am I looking at the right thing? I share my screen. Okay, so Erdem, this is what you sent me here. You're okay with me sharing this, right? Tragedy in Texas. Okay, so this is a Notion link. Notion's a tool that I use sometimes. I do use it because I like the fact that I could put a Kanban board and a project and all my information in one place. However, it's cool. Am I okay to share this? Let me just make sure you're okay with me sharing this on screen, aren't you? Started David Lloyd. Oh, okay. Is that a contract? So we got the pre-production, plan, research, review, status, retro, table read, screen write, location, flow, shoots, edit, metadata, thumbnail, publish, budget. Now I've tried in the past. I've tried to do this kind of thing with my own videos, is to get it to the point where we had like a production type system where we could just like, I create the content and then it goes through everything else where we distribute to all those different places. And we're kind of doing that. I mean, we're kind of doing that where we had everything going, but then as soon as one person was ill, then things would fall apart. Then it was like more for me to take on. And what I found is if I tried to if I tried to over plan the videos, they don't get done, right? It's that thing where it's the same with app development. If you don't release, if you're always looking for perfection, nothing ever gets released. Now that doesn't mean to say that you can't be like, produce, and then as you're going, you get better at it. It's kind of like, like whenever you talk to developers about unit testing or automated testing, the first thing they say is, I don't have time for that. I have deadlines, which, we all have deadlines. But as you start to code and you're putting the reps in, you're getting better and better at doing that. Adding the unit testing in, it just becomes like that extra thing you do because you're getting faster at what you do, and you can start to put in, like, you need to have that foundation of the content rather than I'm going to build all the all the bits around it. So producing every day gets the gets the reps in, and but all this other stuff is important too. And for me, it was like at one point we were having our production schedule was I would come up with a topic. I'd have this list of topics, and then I'll think, okay, what I want to talk about it. I kind of have this idea of what I want to do. I think, where do I want to do it? Do I want to do it from the office? Do I want to do it from my apartment? Do I want to do it, out in the countryside or something like that? And I'll just go and I'll film it. I wouldn't ever script it. I would just I'm just gonna shoot the shit with you guys. I'm just gonna talk about whatever I want to talk about, and if you just my opinions of stuff. And my whole thing with the YouTube channel was like not to have, like, I'm not a teacher, and I'm not, I don't do tutorials. I am the guy you sit with at lunch who, when you talk about technology, we're like, hey, have you seen that new thing? Have you done this? Here's what I think of that. What do you think of this? And that's the community part of it is way better to me than anything else, right? Rather than I'm going to go out and become an expert on this thing so that I could teach you this kind of stuff. That, to me, that sounds boring, rather than let's explore this together. Let's get, what do you guys think about this technology? Or here's some successes that I've had. This has worked for me. This hasn't worked for me, all this kind of stuff. And when it comes to, whereas, and one of the big criticisms I got, which is not unfounded. I mean, it's definitely one of the reasons why it bothered me was because it's true, is that I probably should have put more work into, spending 3 or 4 days to create one video, and then sitting down and doing it all, and then writing a script, and then looking up all the right keywords, and then sit down and do a tutorial that was end to end, and maybe and then have it go all the distribution channels. And to me, it was like, that sounded like not fun. You guys can hear me, right? So that sounded like not fun to me. It was like, I enjoy, when I would work in corporate environments, there were a lot of places I worked where everybody was just there doing the job, and other places where, I remember working at BBC, and it was like, at BBC as an example, where they weren't paid as much there, but when I went to lunch with some of the other developers, and I was new, so I was shy and quiet, but they were talking about technology. They were saying, hey, have you seen the new Longhorn that's going to come out? Have you seen all this? And they're talking about, about code and development, whereas other places I'd worked, they weren't into it. They're like, I knew developers who didn't have computers at home. I mean, this is early 2000s, but they're like, the last thing I do when I get home is I want to look at a coding window. Last thing I want to do, and it's like, dude, like, for me, it was like, that was the fun part, where you get to work on the thing that you want to do, the artistic part of it, and do what you want to do. And so when I would listen to those conversations from those other developers, it not only, it made me excited about what we're in, because we're in a really exciting field. We're software developers. We could from nothing, we could create something. I was in a meeting today where I'm talking about an app that this one organization can have. And to me, it's not that difficult a thing to do. And they're like, but to them, we got to go out and find a developer. We got to find out somebody who knows what we're talking about. We got to know somebody who can actually deliver. We got to do all this kind of stuff. And that's expensive. And, and it's so difficult to find the right people. And, we for those of you guys out there who are really trying to get good at what, sorry, I know I'm showing the screen here, or let me know if there's anything you want me to emphasize on this. But to me, I just wanted to be, you know, I like talking about technology. Like if you were like if we were sitting in the pub and we were talking, and I would be like, and you said, "Hey, what do you think about Flutter or something like that?" I would tell you, I'd be like, "Oh, here's what I like about it. I love the fluid interface. I love the fact that there's no rigid structures in it. I love the fact that you've got this a widget can hold any number of widgets inside of it, and you got that thing where you never have to worry about having enough properties on it to do what you want to do, because it's always a container and that kind of stuff. And there's so many things I really love about it, and other things I don't like about it. And when we're as developers, when we talk about this stuff, we can. So, and as a YouTuber, we just reached 36,000 subscribers. The last 1,000 took a long time to get because I haven't been producing like I did. But to me, production is more important than planning, and that's just the way I've always been. So, is there anything you want to? Let's see. Added deadlines. Decided only to outsource post production. The planning is a big chunk of the work. So my whole thing with doing it, where for a while when I was doing it every day, I thought I'm going to hire an editor. So I had an editor, Martin, who was editing the videos every day. So we had this production thing where I would upload them to Google Drive. So I would record the videos. I'd upload a bunch of them to Google Drive. I'd have a whole bunch of B-roll, because I thought he could just that way he could just choose what he needs and everything like that. And he had 8-hour day. It was a full-time editor. He had 8 hours the whole day to put together something, and he put in it with, I think it was just slapped together. I mean, at first he was like really good. He was like, the titles flowed in. He would find the right clips and everything. And towards the end, he was just like, well, if I'm including it in the folder, obviously I want to use it. So it was just thrown together. And there's, the creativity, like editing requires creativity the same way that filming requires creativity, and writing it comes creativity, and coming up with the topics requires creativity. And when you give that to somebody else, you're putting a lot of, that. So there's times where I'm like, I filmed something, I'm like, ooh, I want to put that bit in there. Or the biggest thing that made me let this editor go was I had I did one where I was like, okay, where I was talking, and I don't edit very often. Most of the time, you notice on the videos that I do is I just talk, dude. I just blah 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 blah. But so I was like, yeah, I don't do jump cuts. I don't take out all the ums and ahs so that my face jumps around. I'm just like, screw it. I'm just gonna talk, like I'm doing now. And I did on one of them where I did stop and say, okay, so. Oh, I just messed up there. Go back, take this part out and whatever. And he released a video with that in it. He didn't even watch the video. That's a whole outsourcing thing though. So this looks good. I mean, to me, it looks like, I'd like to see the finished product of this, because there's, a lot of cool stuff here. And to me, like, I think about YouTube videos the same way, the same way that I think about apps. It's like, there comes a point where you have to go live, right? And if you know it's going to be successful, if you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's going to be successful, then by all means, you'd put as much effort into it as possible. You would make it perfect, right? But when you're still in the let's see if this works stage, then you want to get something out there quick so you can see, start getting feedback and seeing, okay, this worked, that didn't work. Let me try something different. Let me, let's go for that whole 10,000 hour rule and just produce, and then we'll get better as we go. But no, it looks cool. Let's see. Where was I? Usyk says, publishing too much small apps versus publishing 5 to 6 complex apps and give more effort on them, make more money. Which one will win in terms of making more money? Publishing 5 to 6 complex apps. I've tried the first way with too much small apps, and that did not work. First of all, it's a nightmare when you go through. I still, I said this last week, I haven't done it yet. I still have to go through and say all my, last time I went through and said, no, it's not a news app. Now I got to do whatever. It's not a COVID tracker app. I got to go fill in all the, the privacy information for all the apps that I have. And some of them didn't make any money. And my logic at the time was, well, even if it only makes $1 a month, if I just have a bunch of them, all I need is like 1 million of those, right? If it only just makes $1 a month, at least that's something, right? There's no reason to take it down. You're not charged per app to host it or to put it on the Google Play, so you might as well keep those on there. But then you get this, the point where you have to change something, or there's a rule change that comes through, and you're like, oh God, or there might be something where you've got this app that's hardly making anything, and then you're not even paying it much attention. And then for whatever reason, the guidelines change, and that one gets suspended for some reason. And then you got that strike on your record, and you're like, oh. So for me, it'll be like, it's doing a bunch of small ones to test the market is probably a good idea, but then focusing on the ones that work, right? At some point, you're going to think, you put your line in the water. Like if you're a fisherman, and you're going to try all the different parts of the lake, but then when you find the bit where they're biting, then you focus all your energy there, right? You're going to move into that thing. And for me, there was like, 1 or 2 apps that were really good. And there were some that I just liked that I kept on. And it was like, I really like this one. I really think we did a good job on this one. And, and there's times where things would just take off. Like I'm thinking, all right, that was a waste of time. And then it just takes off later on. So, and that's on the Google Play side. On the Apple side, they got crazy about this. So my whole thing was, I'll just make minor modifications, and I'll reskin this for another market, or reskin this one for another market. And then after a while, Apple started saying, you're spamming the market. You need to have all these in one application. So my big thing, and you guys probably I talk about this all the time, I had language learning apps. So I really started off with Chinese Mandarin because that was the language I learned in the Army. So having like a flashcard type based application. So I had this kind of production thing where we built this, and I was like, well, let's reskin it. And we gave it all new designs, all new colors, all new music, new voice actors, new vocabulary. Everything about it was different except the mechanics of it. And then we did it to Spanish. We did like 27 different languages. And that's, a lot of that stuff's still out there. And even taking those different languages and saying, well, rather than just do these bubble things, let's try other things too. And then Apple started saying, nope, you need to have one language learning application. And I was like, well, some of these languages, I specifically went for non-mainstream ones, like Bengali or Swahili or, some of the ones, because those excited me more, right? For years as a Mandarin student, learning Chinese Mandarin when I was in the Army, I'd go to bookstores and all I could find was beginner's Mandarin and a whole bunch of Spanish books. So I thought I want to focus on the more niche things because first of all, they have better search traffic, there'll be less congested and everything. But when Apple says, no, you need to have one language learning app, then all of a sudden, all that keyword and all that marketability is gone. It was like, it was just, it didn't make any sense. I still don't think it makes sense. I'm still angry at Apple for that. And, and I think had I kept it down to like a reasonable level, I think if I kept it to like 10, maybe a dozen apps, I probably would be fine. But it got to the point where they were rejecting anything I sent through. Even it wasn't even related to me. They're going, nope, you got to combine these apps. I'm like, this is like not even a language learning app. This is something completely different. And I go, all right, we'll allow this one, right? But they were just rubber stamping it. And, Apple. Have you guys had that? Let's see. Spas are great. I don't think I've been to a spa. Adam, hey, how's it going? Let's see. Eric, how are you finding the Android Studio on the M1 enabled Mac? Working okay? It seems to work okay, but I have to use a physical device, and this is the thing that bugs me about it. I haven't had that device with me. I haven't, and to be honest with you, at the moment I'm using Visual Studio for Mac more, but it's still I still have to have the Android SDKs and everything. So I do have Android Studio installed, and every so often I'll open it up to look at apps that I have. My big thing about it is not having the simulators working, not having that thing. So, But it's not the end of the world. You just always have to have an Android phone with you. And my big thing about when I have to test on an Android, it used to be I used Android for everything. And I was like, okay, let me check it, see if it works on iOS. And now I'm the opposite. It's just because I'm always on a Mac, it's easier for me to do the testing on a Mac and do the iOS testing. So now when I have to test on an Android, I have to get a device out. And I realize that all my devices are dead because I forgot to turn them off last time. So I got to charge these things up. Even though I have them plugged in here to the computer, they don't charge for some reason. So I have to even today, I'm like, okay, let me test this thing out on Android because I had to send somebody a build today. And of course, my Android's dead. So I'm like, great. I got to wait at least half an hour to charge, to get some battery juice into this thing. So that's probably my biggest complaint about it, is not having that. But I do like, the compactness of it. I think I'm spoiled by the big screen when I'm actually sitting here working. So, but no, I think it's pretty good. How are you finding, Adrian? Are you using that? Let's see. Robert T says, I don't mind repeated topics and Overpass videos. The videos are useful to me. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I think it was every time I did one, there were a few people go, you already talked about this. You already talked about this. And sometimes, for the most part, everybody's been really nice. Every so often I get a hateful comment. What was it said the other day? Somebody said, you ear raped me with your hello being so loud. Thumbs down or whatever. Well, I said hello too loud. That's what your problem is. So, but no, I appreciate that. Mr. Noob. Hey, Mr. Noob. Hey, Eric, Google deprecated many APIs in Android 12, which makes supporting older apps so difficult. I know. What is the one that I was looking at one the other day, which I need to look into and make sure it still works, was just being able to send emails using the email composer required some additional things in the manifest. But yeah, to me, and this is one of those, for the longest time, an Android 8 was my test phone was this guy, my Nexus 6P. Now I've got a Pixel 3 for my my testing phone. I've also got some older stuff. I've got this Nokia. It's a new one. It's brand new, but it's slow. It's slow. So I test on these things. But for a long time, Android 8 was my biggest one, and I didn't realize that some of my apps they needed audio permission. So, but you needed to ask for that in a different way on Android 8 and above, I think, so that things just weren't working, and nobody ever said anything. They're just like, oh, this app sucks, right? And that's one of those things when we talk about having bad reviews. I remember reading this customer service book years ago where they said only 1 in 10 people ever bother to leave complaints. It's even probably less than that. So if you have somebody complains about something, you got to think this could be more serious than I think. And sometimes people just give you crazy complaints about stuff. You say hello too loud. And I'm like, oh, what should I do? Should I just be like, oh, hey, everybody, this is Overpass. See, so the planning is a big chunk of the work. Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, I think the I'm a bit cynical about the YouTube video. In fact, I love doing the YouTube videos, but it's funny because I got an email today. I got 3 emails this week for sponsorship. Hey, we think your audience would love our thing, and we'll pay you to do a video about. One, it was an energy drink. Sometimes it's app related, sometimes it's other people's apps. And for a while I would always put these in a folder and say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do sponsorship videos. And the videos are going to make money. And then I realized it would stop being fun, right? If that became the thing. There's still that thing where when I make the transition from being a developer to a YouTuber, then, I don't know. I think I would lose all disrespect for myself. I gotta be able to walk the walk. And, I can't just be I'm the guy who talks about doing this stuff, but can't do it anymore. No, I gotta head down and learn this stuff. So, although it's very seductive, I went to a YouTube thing with a consultant a few years ago, and she was like, this could be your full-time income doing YouTube videos. And it was very seductive. It was very much yeah. Yes, I could just do videos all the time. And then it'll be, what would I do videos about? Because, it does have to do with, the only reason anybody watches any of the videos is because hopefully I provide a bit of value, and I won't provide value if I don't know how to do anything but, make videos. Robert says, tutorials get outdated really quickly. It would be hard to get a big enough audience to make that work. Yeah, and some people just do it really, really well too. Like Fireship.io, I was watching some of his tutorials today, and I think they're great. But see, one of the things that really bugged me when I started was the amount of people who were doing tutorials on stuff they didn't even use. They say, or something they heard about. Like I could say, you should be using, let's say, oh, you know what you should be using? Firebase Remote Config. So Firebase Remote Config is the best, right? Because here's how you use it, blah, 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 blah. But, I've used Firebase Config or, a little bit, but, like if somebody says you should use this, I want them to show proof that it's worked for them, because a lot of people went straight from I can't make money with this, I'll just be a consultant about this. And they're talking about stuff they have no experience with, or stuff that's academic, or stuff that's just like another thing with the sponsorship thing, like Sensor Tower. Sensor Tower is, you got to get Sensor Tower, because if you don't have Sensor Tower, I mean, what are you even doing? I mean, I know it's expensive, but Sensor Tower or the tool or Mobile Action Pro, whatever, those are all, but when I say, okay, show me how to use it, nobody would sit down and say, okay, here's how you specifically use it. End to end. Even their tutorials on the website wasn't doing it. I'm thinking, is this like is this an Emperor's New Clothes situation where we're all kind of like trying to show how we know what we're doing because we're talking about this? Or is somebody going to actually sit down and say, this is specifically how I made this work? I've spent like so much money with those companies trying to get this stuff to work, but there's like a lot of it was really hyped. And I got sick of people who would go on and make, sorry, I'm just complaining today, aren't I? So I just got sick of people like saying, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that," right? And they have no real world experience on it. Like, have you done this, and how has it worked for you? How has it improved your life? And to me, I wanted to keep things to that, to that kind of thing. Usyk says, in long term, adding unit and automated testing may save so much time. It does in the long term. Since you don't have to repeat many manual tests when you add a new feature. Yes, I mean, and to me, if I got a bit of logic that's really complicated, like I'm like, like if I got an algorithm that is like, like the decision tree is just really like, you go, okay, so if the user has this permission, you go here. If it goes this, go there. Here's that kind of stuff where you like, it would take so long to test it each and every time, and you'll end up making a change, you'll break something, and you won't even like that unless you've got all this stuff to test. That kind of stuff, the unit testing is amazing. I've never been like one of those people who says I got 98% code coverage or whatever on my testing, because a lot of that testing, it seemed like it was like, dude, like it's too much. Your testing, automated testing is too much. Like, I want to make sure when you click the start button, it goes to the next page. It's like, well, that's something that, there's no leap of logic there, right? There's like, it's always going to go to the next page. But if you have something where there's a decision tree that goes on, and you got some sort of algorithm or some sort of change that goes through, you need to be able to do that. And then you got the stuff like the Selenium testing, like the actual UI testing. That is kind of useful. But a lot of times, depending on how complicated the user interface is, sometimes it's just clicking through. But yeah, I agree. Buffering. Am I buffering? I have been having internet trouble lately, so I could be sitting here talking. You guys won't even know. In fact, you guys might not be here right now. As a software developer, it's always hard to calculate the best deadline to a project. Working with Lucid couple teams is a challenge on the side. Yeah, no, it's always. This is one of those things when you give a deadline to a project, you're like, even when you're quoting for a project, this is one of those things that, I always assume if I get somebody over, like a person came to repair the washing machine and he gave me a quote, I'm thinking he's done this enough times that I know I know what he's going to do. But he also doesn't have the fear of me going, oh, and while you're in there, can you add this? Oh, and while you're doing this, there's this other problem. Oh, and while you're in there, like he doesn't have scope creep. Like, and we as developers, we have scope creep. So we're always thinking our estimates of the problem or the solution are, okay, I have this thing in my head how it needs to be fixed, and you have that thing in your head how it has to be fixed. And we're going to document as much as we can to make sure that we both are thinking the same thing. But there's always going to be something that comes out of left field that just throws everything off. So a lot of our estimates are different than other tradesmen. Let's see. Breens Robert. Hey, Breens, how's it going? Says thoughts on Jetpack Compose for developer productivity in regards to standard XML way building UI. I haven't used Jetpack Compose. Again, that goes back towards more. That's more the. Is that the? When I think of Jetpack, I think of WordPress, but we're talking about the Jetpack Compose. Does it? Let's Google this. I'm going to Google this because I get one of these things where I'm getting confused. Let's see, Jetpack Compose. I'm going to show my screen here in a second. Android's modern toolkit, Jetpack Compose. Okay, cool. Ah. Oh, so it's not using the XML layout. So I don't like, that was one of the things I hate about the I don't like this about well, I didn't like it about Ionic. I don't like about, whenever you're using Swift and you have to go into storyboard or whatever, the nib files. Like, I like and that's one of the things I like about Flutter. I liked it about Corona, just being able to have something where everything is nested stuff. That looks pretty cool. I've never used it. I think because most of the stuff I've been doing has been cross-platform. So I mean, is that, in fact, to the point where I didn't even know that was a thing. A lot of this, when I do work on something that's like Android, a lot of times it's like legacy stuff that comes to me. In fact, I have an app that came to me, like an Android application. It was Android and iOS, and I took it and just converted it to Xamarin. Well, I say converted it. I rewrote it in Xamarin. Cilantro Apps says, anybody notice any change in the Google Play ranking algorithm? I am referring to the last couple of months in conjunction with the latest new policies enforcement by Google. I haven't noticed. I've noticed that my AdMob seems to be going up a bit. But again, we're approaching Christmas. That's about what it would be. Follow on to Brain's questions. Have you tried Swift UI? I like to make it way more than storyboards, so much easier. So, yeah, I think I don't like. Yeah, for me, this is one of those things where it's been. I very rarely go into just native, just one platform. I'm always trying to look for the way to do it just one. And if I do go into native development, a lot of times it's writing plugins or writing the lower down code that maybe I can't find a plugin for. But no, I like the fact that everything's changed, that because like even like I think .NET MAUI's doing a lot more of that kind of thing, like less XAML and more. You can still use XAML, but you can use a lot of that kind of that widget style code. I like that. Let's see. Mr. New says, how many here prefer React Native over Flutter? Who prefers React Native over Flutter? Don't be embarrassed. Don't be shy. I prefer Flutter, but I'm not going to make fun of anybody. What? All right. so Sunar's in React Native. Yeah, I think of. Yeah, maybe I did. So this week I've been struggling with an Ionic application. I haven't been struggling with it. Basically, the only thing I had to do is take the Ionic application. Some work was done to it, and I just had to. The Android part was already done. I just had to put it into iOS, and for some reason it just was not updating. I was pushing something to test flight, and it was just not going through. And then finally it was like, okay, I was doing Ionic Cordova prepare iOS, Ionic build iOS. I was trying to like just run it through Ionic, and it was just like it was just not updating. And in the end, I had to like I have to do this over and over again throughout the years, which is like it's weird when you have to like remove the platform and then add it again. So for those guys are Ionic developers, Ionic Cordova platforms remove iOS and then add it again, and then you're thinking I hope when I added those npm projects in, I did -- save. I hope it's in the config. I hope it's in the package.json. And I think when I think of React Native, I think the same thing. I think I'm tired of dependencies. Oh, thanks everybody for the thumbs up too, by the way. Everybody who's here. Let's see. Follow up to the thing. I'm finding it much easier than iOS storyboards. Yeah, I hate iOS storyboards. It's like I had to do one little thing in iOS storyboard, and it took me forever just because of the to me. I don't know. I've gotten so used to JetBrains tools. I mean, okay, so JetBrains does Android Studio, and they do IntelliJ, and and Rider and all this stuff, and it looks a lot like Visual Studio because they did ReSharper for Visual Studio. So I think a lot of them go into that same way. So like one of the reasons I use JetBrains tools is because I have all the keyboard shortcuts and everything. I've got them all in my head, and it's just easier to work with. And then when I go into Xcode, it's like, okay, let's just do everything that doesn't make sense. Like let's let's just rename everything else. And there's some really good tools in Xcode, like being able to see the memory usage and everything like that. Really good tools there, but it's just crazy. It's like some sort of feverish acid dream on code. You're like, where would I put this? Let me put all the configurations in these tabs over here, but then we'll put everything else into info.plist, and then also our documentation will refer to the keys in info.plist and not to the drop-down values if you're using it through the Xcode GUI. And rather than say publish, let's call it package or archive. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's call it archive, and then and just nothing makes sense. And no matter what, you'll just be ticking away. Everything will be fine on iOS, and then for some reason, you're well, this usually happens because I'm going from one computer to another, but it's like, your signing permissions are wrong. It's like, no, they're not. They weren't yesterday. Why are they wrong today? And then you got that dreaded thing where you're like, I should not dread. It's just a pain when after a year your developer certificate expires and you're like, no, I got to go regenerate all those damn mobile provisioning profiles, and I got to do all that kind of stuff and go through all that. And there have been times where it says your certificate expires in 2 days. I'm like, I'm just gonna try to do this because I'm like, it's gonna slow me down trying to do all that stuff. And God, I got so many. I generated so many certificates from this because I got all the client applications. I got all kinds of stuff. Flutter Hot Reload. Flutter Hot Reload with a browser is so slow. I haven't really tried much with the browser. I still do most of it in the IDE, but Breens, sure. Have you done AdMob in Flutter? Does that work well? I haven't done yet. I have not used that library. Most of the AdMob stuff I have is in native Android. Well, sorry, native Android, native iOS. Well, sorry, Objective-C, Java for Android, or Corona SDK, which I have some really old libraries. Solar 2D as we call it these days, but I really need to update those. Let's see. Robert Breen says it's better for build making UIs fun and faster. That sounds cool to me. I think it's. I used to hate that about. I don't like it about Xamarin, and I didn't like it about Silverlight, where you have this code behind thing where you got code here and you're binding it here, and at least if you're in React Native or some other thing, you could easily merge the JavaScript and HTML markup and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I got tired of using something different for the GUI than for that. And in Xcode you got those. Yeah, you got this weird. See, this is another thing about Xcode. I'm gonna talk about Xcode. Is like when you add a button in the storyboard or in the the nib, and then in order to attach it to the function, you have to like you drag something over there or something, and maybe that's just the way I was taught, but it didn't make sense where I've got all of a sudden I've got this WSWG thing, and then I've got this whole drag and drop thing, and then I got code, and it's like, dude, pick a lane, stick to it, and that's why I like the code way. And I may, okay, you guys, for those of you guys who are native iOS developers, you may think I don't know what I'm talking about, and you probably are right. Let's see, it's interesting that subreddit for React Native and Flutter Dev have almost similar numbers in terms of size. Ooh, we should have a Jetson Shark Rumble. Jetson Sharks Rumble. We'll all meet up in an alley and we'll all fight each other. God, wouldn't that be awesome, right? A bunch of software developers, like, cracking our necks and just like, come on, man, we're gonna like get a rumble. Let's see. Breen says, I want to dive into making app as an indie Android dev. Should I focus on local market, Kenya, or go international? I think you should go international. I mean, unless there's a reason to go local. Most of my applications are international, right? But one of the things to think about is making it putting the language capabilities in there, the multilingual capabilities in there from the beginning, because that's something that's very difficult to go through and retrofit. So like you have to change all your labels, you have to, and changing labels is no big deal to put in like the international 18 whatever thing is. That's not a big deal to go in and do that afterwards. It's when you have stuff like drop downs and databases and APIs, and you're like, okay, now I need to send something through that API to say, give me the data in that language and everything. So it's one of those things just to know in the beginning, where a lot of times in the beginning, like if you have a database table, you might just be adding a language field to it, or so that you could go through and add that later on, and not have to rewrite a whole bunch of different stuff. So, but yeah, I never really see a reason to restrict your app to a certain location unless it's network based, which means like you have different people. The whole goal of the app is certain people to come into contact with other people. So like if it's like a market type of thing where you like the sellers and the buyers are in the same place, and you don't want to have sellers and buyers all the way across the world when you have 20 users, because then it's like the app is useless. So if you focus on one location, then that makes sense. But if it's something where you don't have that situation, where it's just I don't see any reason to not go international. Anything tips on the things to look out for? I think they're doing the multilingual thing, and I think every developer should do that. And I always assumed every developer did, because I remember reading, but the first time I read a book on Android, it was talking about using the strings.json file. And I thought, okay, that's just the way it does. And then, and I started doing something, and in the end I was like, I can't get this done. So I had a team in India do it, and there was no concept of that at all. And when I say I want to make this I want to add another language to it, we did it in Chinese, and rather than make it based on the location of the app setting or the device settings, they had a drop down. So you select your country, select the language. And it was like, what do you guys, this is not how this is supposed to work. They were just, so that's one of those things just to think about early. I mean, I think we should be at the point now where most of that stuff, should be easy to do. And like I said, if it's just labels and stuff like that, you could go through and add that logic in later on if you had to, but it's more when you have like the database type stuff, like, or especially currencies. If you're not using the App Store, because that is one nice thing about using the App Store IAP libraries is they do all that currency conversion for you. But if you have like if you're listing whatever stuff. I mean, every time you list a price on something, it should be coming from the App Store so that you could change it without having to re-release it. Let's see. Robert says the chat UI on this video seems glitchy today. Does it? I'm having weird internet issues this week. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Could be. But and Matthew Creek says, "Hi." Hang on, give me a second. Hey, how's it going? So so that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm gonna have to look into this Jetpack Compose and Swift UI. Excuse me. It's not COVID. It's just dry throat. Dry throat, not COVID. I'm gonna have to look into some of this stuff because I do like the fact that hot reload is becoming more and more important. I remember doing, so there was when iOS 15 came out, or Xcode 13 for iOS 15, the hot reload on Xamarin stopped working for a little bit on a Mac for iOS, and it was annoying going back to the whole compile and load on the device. It was faster to do it on the simulator, but it was still like annoying that the feedback loop was too slow. And that's one of the things that as software developers are always thinking about, the feedback loop. And like you make a change, you see if it works, and then you make the next change and see if it works. So you're constantly, you're making small iterations and testing them as you go. Right? Which is the way you assume everyone would do it. Although I did work with some developers once. God, I'm gonna complain about everything today. What they did was they designed the entire application, and then afterwards they said, it's not working, we don't know why. I was like, well, what part of it's not working? They didn't know. They were like, I was like, well, surely you would make your database tables, or like how you do it, like you're working on one small section at a time, you're testing that section before you go. No, they were just doing the whole thing, and then they were like, it's a same thing as doing pipes, like plumbing and stuff like that, and then never testing to see if there's any leaks until you like finish the whole thing. And you're like, turn it on, it was like, nope, lots of leaks, not working, we don't know why. Let's see. Spaghetti Dude says, hey, Spaghetti Dude, that's a cool name. How can someone really learn something in a perfect way? All courses are copied, same e-commerce project and to-do list. That's true. Lots of to-do lists. I believe those course makers know too little, but where to learn. You get it? Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, because see, has anybody sent anything through on the thing? I totally, absolutely agree with you. And this is one of those things where there's only so much you can learn from a course, and you have to get to the point where you're actually doing it. And I talk about this a lot. There's like, anybody who's ever done any of this kind of stuff knows that there's things that should work and there's things that actually work. And you're like, dude, why is this not working for me? What's going on? And so troubleshooting, I think troubleshooting is probably one of the troubleshooting and knowing how to read logs is probably some of the most important skills. Like, it used to be as doing desktop apps on Windows, like it was like knowing how to read the event viewer. Like, that was the first place I always went. I was like, I got my troubleshooting skills so I was working at an investment bank, and I would get weird things. Like, they would say, okay, there's this desktop app running on a computer down in the middle of the trading floor, and nobody uses this computer. It's got a sticker on it that says do not switch off, but it's got this piece of software on there that stopped working on it. Nobody knows who wrote it. Nobody knows where it came from. It's just essential to the whole business. Which sounds crazy, and it is crazy. But there was a lot of stuff like this. Every so often you have something like somebody installed something and it became vital to the whole, to a whole department, and it just stopped working. And they like, and some people went to go look at it, and then they set me down there to look at it. And you start with, the troubleshooting things. Okay, like what, where's this thing even located? Let me look at the shortcut. Where's it pointing? Where's that on the directory? Is it writing any files to the installation directory? Is it writing anything to the registry? Let me check the registry for something. Let's check the event viewer. Usually I start with event viewer to see if anything's going in there. Let me just try clicking around with anything. Let me check the internet connectivity. It was like all this kind of stuff, and just being able to troubleshoot. And that's probably a bigger skill than knowing how to actually create something, because you rarely have ideal conditions. There's always something that comes up. So it's, you're working on something, and you, like I said, the to-do list thing. Okay. So you click on this to-do list and all this stuff, and you got this thing, and you're thinking, well, what about authentication? Authentication is like so often in these tutorials, it's just like, yeah. And then later on we'll add authentication. That's another tutorial. That'll be another, whatever, $20 for that part. But that's huge. Like, authentication is a huge part of everything. So it's really easy to do these kind of things and the same stuff over and over again. And it's not until you actually get to the point where you're actually creating something that you start to learn this stuff. Like, what's the best tool to use in this situation? And there's times where you do something, you're like, well, hell, that was a wrong thing to do. Like, did you ever do something where you're like, you've been struggling with a problem for like hours and hours and hours? You're like, this doesn't work. And then the next thing you realize, you know, you didn't have to do any of that. Like, just something will like just occur to you, like, hey, you know, like for some reason I was going down this certain way. And there's just things that come up as you're doing stuff. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen, actually it wasn't the weirdest, but it was just like really wasteful, was I was working on this, I was brought on as a contractor at at BBC to work on this one application. And the previous developer had left. And, you know, like with all these kind of projects, so often you get into the thing and they go, oh, the last guy wasn't very good, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, that's what you guys will be saying about me, but when I leave, but okay, right. So you go in there and he did this thing where he had to get a random image from a database, right? This was using SQL Server and classic ASP. And so, yeah, so what he did was he would get all the records from this table, like thousands of records from this table in the page, and he would go through and loop through it and with a counter, you know, whatever, you know, int counter is equal to 0, and then he would loop through it and increment by 1, and then he would close a connection, and then he would get a random number in that range from those, and then he would select from another, he would open up another database connection. Actually, I think the other one was still open, and then he would click another database collection thing, and he would select it, and then he would loop through till he got to that number, and then he would display that record. And that's how we got a random one. And really, all you had to do was like order by new ID, which would randomize everything. It was like, had he Googled it, it would have been like, so taking like 20 lines of code and loads of database connections and moving it to one database connection and a much more efficient thing. Like sometimes there's things that you just, you know, and that's just stuff you learn from experience, just doing stuff. And, you know, and there's times where you're working on stuff where you're going like, this is really hard. I was talking with a friend about this the other day. Like you get to the point where separation of concerns is like important as you get more experience, right? And you don't even, sometimes it's like not even like you're thinking, well, like I said, it's not necessary to have this here, but you're like, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to have GUI code in the model, whatever, you know. It doesn't feel right to have too much logic in a stored procedure somewhere. You know, back when we used stored procedures, like there was, you know, I don't like having too much logic in a stored procedure because that should be part of the business layer, so like that. So sometimes you just get to that point where you know, things just, you know, it gets murky. So many places I've worked at, you know, like some developer comes with the novel idea, like the bing, like it happens all the time. Why don't we just put HTML in the database? Then we can just update it as much as we want. And then you got this database that's not queryable and you can't get any stats from it because everything's stored in XML or in HTML in the database table. And you're like, well, this sucks, right? So that's the kind of stuff you inherit. But I don't, yeah, sometimes, yeah, like there's only so much you can learn from those courses. They're good to get the foundations. Like you know, it's like, you know, it's like learning to play chords on a guitar, but when you're going to make music, so actually sitting down and just, you know, hammering through it and, you know, and making mistakes and going back and correcting those mistakes. And a lot of times it's working with other people so you can think, you know, what works better. A really good book is the book about design patterns. I like the one Head First Design Patterns because it just really made sense to me, a lot of this stuff. And think about how things are structured in a certain way that they just make sense. Dhruv says, hello, hey, how's it going? A spaghetti dude can spaghetti code. I try to learn Flutter. All those known courses makers seem to know nothing. The problem is that a big number of learners are satisfied while they learn nothing, in fact. Yeah, you have to actually sit down and do it. Because I've done that too. All these courses, you take these courses, you think, okay, I got this. And then you sit down and do it. And then you realize, oh, I've got a problem with state. I got a problem with how do I use this provider pattern to bring everything through. And you got, like, sometimes you get this thing where you got like I'm using a provider pattern, but now I need to use a multi-stream provider, and how am I going to do that? And like, what's the state of this going forward? And sometimes you'll do something like, ooh, this doesn't seem like the best way to do this, but there's also that I'm going to get this part done and get through it. And sometimes actually, when you actually sit down and hammer it out, that it actually works. I mean, how often have you done the Flutter, starting a new Flutter project, and you got that stateful widget with a number counter on there, and thought that's cool. And every tutorial says, first thing we're going to do is get rid of all of this stuff. But I don't know. I think it's getting to that point where you actually do something that does it. And this is why I really like working with Firebase, because then I could just focus on, for the most part, on the Flutter side of things and not have to worry so much about server-side code unless I write any cloud functions. But I try to do as much as I can, just connect it directly to Auth and Firestore, because at least you have that the security being handled with those communications going that way. Wait, what? A spaghetti dude, not spaghetti. I know. I was wondering whether that's why you called spaghetti. Okay, sorry. No, that was not meant to be insulting. Lars, hey Lars, how's it going? Hi, Eric with a K. Thank you very much. After going through many of your videos, I want to say hi. Hey, how's it going? And thank you for content aspiring developer hobbyist. Hey, look, I'm glad. I hope you learn something. That's one of it's fun to do. It's fun to do what we do. Let's see. Yusuf says, hey, has anybody tried to use NativeScript Capacitor as a plugin to Capacitor? Capacitor is a new alternative to Cordova. Yeah, I've never used Capacitor at all. In fact, I've sworn off Cordova. Actually, I just did. Actually, I use Cordova as little as possible. I think just because it was. I did a video a few years ago where I have this like suspicion about Cordova, where in the beginning it was like with PhoneGap, and then PhoneGap and went to Cordova. Ionic was a fantastic framework, but you still have that whole thing where you got the web view thing there, and you get these issues that come up, and and I'm always have dependency problems and everything. Where's the point where I'm like, I'm so sick of the fact that I've got some dependency issues, or my something's not running. Am I on the right node version? Am I on whatever? And I don't want to have to keep up with every single change of technology that these platforms have to make in order to keep up with native. And so when it came to NativeScript, the only reason I never used NativeScript, and I was tempted by it, because I wanted to use something that was JavaScript based, but also something that was much more flexible. I didn't really like using plugins for Cordova. But NativeScript, the documentation at the time, there was not that much there, and the community seems to be a lot smaller than the other communities. And I could be wrong. See, the plugin makes it possible to access all the Android and iOS API through JavaScript, TypeScript. That was another thing I heard. Like, it was like they said everything is available through NativeScript, but the documentation just wasn't there. That was the thing. Now this was, to be fair, at least 6 years ago, so like maybe there's documentation there, but I haven't really done much with it. Also, I'd like to ask, I tried to learn Django. Could this conflict? I wouldn't think so. I've never learned Django. So my languages are I started off doing Visual Basic when I was back in the day, back when I was just a wee little boy. I used Visual Basic, but then I moved on to C# and then JavaScript. JavaScript was I mean, I learned JavaScript in the early days, but like because it's been around forever. But when Node.js and everything came out, I fell in love with Node.js. I love the fact that you can do everything in JavaScript, even writing like some like, let's not say shell script, but if I want to write my own little tools here that I want to just, I need to copy all these files here and copy them back here or whatever. Like if I'm doing some, like I've got loads of like types of stuff this for my apps, like using Node.js script and with Fastlane, so I could go through and upload all my apps through a script to Google Play. That's like the kind of thing I love being able to do all that stuff with JavaScript. And and I use C# a lot still. I've done quite a lot with Java, Lua for Corona, but that's one of those things where I kind of just leave it by. I used to do some stuff with Dart, although my Dart is not as good as my C# is. Certain things that I missed about C#, like link and stuff, and but C# is very much like corporate. I always consider it to be like a corporate developer thing. Like there are people out there who are like the ayatollahs of properly written C#, and there's times where I'm like, I just need to get this done, get it out the door. What other languages? Most of them are JavaScript based. Like because you got Node.js, then you can use Firebase functions, all that with Node.js. Like it's like so versatile. I've never really been a big TypeScript guy, or TypeScript or CoffeeScript or Blazor. You got so many things that will that branch off from that. But I'm still very much a native guy. So, and just spaghetti code. Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. I think we're gonna end up. Yeah. Sorry about the whole spaghetti code thing, spaghetti dude. I was just wondering if that was the thing. So, and finally, Darshana says, Eric, what would make a good average IAP refund rate? Do you think? I would imagine it'd be about for a refund rate. I don't know, 1%, 5%. I think it would have to be low. I mean, you shouldn't expect to get refunds once they made that purchase. Let's see. Have you tried Google optimized ECPM settings on Android? Yeah, most of the times that's what I would use. It's just the Google optimized one. Every time I try to to set my own ECPM floors and stuff like that, or my ECPM floors, it just got too complicated, so I just let them handle all that stuff. See, and Spaghetti Dude says, I love JS, but we have a library for each library and a framework made of each framework, and I'm tired of the new fancy blah.js every minute. That is true, and that's one of those. That's also one of the reasons why I didn't like TypeScript. It felt like somebody was taking something that wasn't broken and trying to create something new, and there's like everybody's trying to get really fancy with stuff. And the one thing that I'm really intrigued by is Flutter Web, but I haven't done a whole lot with it because I have Angular admin sites done in Angular and with a Flutter application as the app and the admin site in Angular, and I would like to combine those to use Flutter Web. But I'm still skeptical about the fact that Flutter Web, like to me, a browser serves HTML, it serves JavaScript. That's what they know to do. That's what the worldwide, the W3C got together so they could come up with these things. And every time one browser tries to go away and says we're going to do something special like Internet Explorer did back in the day, then it comes back to bite you. But yeah, I agree with that. Lars says, do you know of any visual tool for presenting content in an Xcode project? Earlier versions of Xcode, there was such a thing. Presenting content in an Xcode project. No, I'm not. Like presenting. No, I'm not aware of any. Like when I use Xcode, it's just running in a simulator or a physical device. And sometimes I'll even use app code because it's a JetBrains tool, and I will do some stuff in there just because, again, the shortcuts and the fact that that the person who came up with Xcode was obviously very disturbed. No, it's like because I hate using Xcode. Jedi Dick Sensei, hey, how's it going? May the force be with you. Thank you very much. May the force be with you. Yusuf said, I was talking about native script capacitor, which makes it possible to write the UI with web tech, and at the same time you can access the whole Android and iOS API with JavaScript/TypeScript. Okay, no, I haven't seen that. It doesn't run in a web view. Do you have to use like a special code or anything for that? No, okay, I'll look at that, Yusuf. Thanks. Well, I think we're gonna call it here. We've been doing this for an hour. Just like I said, the live stream is just hanging out. Didn't plan anything. Don't have a topic. Just hanging out with you guys. I really appreciate you guys showing up. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for being there. And I hope you guys have a great week. We will not be doing the live stream next week. I'm not going to be available next week. but I should be back the week after. And I hope you guys have a great week, great couple weeks ahead. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again next time. See you guys later.
Winterland, tell me all your secrets. Fill me in on your wildest moments. Colored trees, your